Fishery product from clean Korean sea, K-fish. We aim to put superb and healthy taste to go forward to the world and create new value. With appetizing texture, taste, and unique flavor, Korean red crab has so much popularity so that the resource of overfishing is outlawed. It is rich in essential amino acid, promoting insulin secretion to maintain biorhythms. The chitosan and quinin prevents body fat accumulation and also prevents cancer, diabetes, liver, and vessel-related disorders. Oyster, also called the milk of the sea since it is rich in calcium, is produced and exported from clean Korean sea with guaranteed safety approval from USA FDA. Oyster is abundant in taurine, helping brain development of children. It is also very effective in skin reproduction and elasticity, causing massive popularity as female beauty treatment food. It is also standing out as a stamina food for males since it stimulates hormone secretion. Flatfish is impregnated with omega-3 acid to increase metabolism, and also full of lysine and collagen needed for cell restoration. It helps quick recovery of body and skin aging prevention. Seaweed, manufactured in various forms including snack seaweed in seasoned flavor, can be a good alternative to replace popcorn or fried potato. It is rich in dietary fiber, effective in relieving cholesterol and colon cancer prevention. It also contains vitamin A and calcium, easing night blindness and osteoporosis. Above these, with the plentiful nutrient and various effect, tuna, abalone, fish cake, sea cucumber, and bay salt are receiving great love from the world. The great taste and nutrient of K-fish is going to create the new value. And it is the healthy life of the world. To share the value of K-fish, healthy fishery product from clean Korean sea will be delivered to kitchen table of world people. Fishery product from clean Korean sea, K-fish. We aim to put superb and healthy taste to go forward to the world and create new value. With appetizing texture, taste, and unique flavor, Korean red crab has so much popularity so that the resource of overfishing is outlawed. It is rich in essential amino acid, promoting insulin secretion to maintain biorhythms. The chitosan and quinin prevents body fat accumulation and also prevents cancer, diabetes, liver, and vessel-related disorders. Oyster, also called the milk of the sea since it is rich in calcium, is produced and exported from clean Korean sea with guaranteed safety approval from USA FDA. Oyster is abundant in taurine, helping brain development of children. It is also very effective in skin reproduction and elasticity, causing massive popularity as female beauty treatment food. It is also standing out as a stamina food for males since it stimulates hormone secretion. Flatfish is impregnated with omega-3 acid to increase metabolism, and also full of lysine and collagen needed for cell restoration. It helps quick recovery of body and skin aging prevention. Seaweed, manufactured in various forms including snack seaweed in seasoned flavor, can be a good alternative to replace popcorn or fried potato. It is rich in dietary fiber, effective in relieving cholesterol and colon cancer prevention. It also contains vitamin A and calcium, easing night blindness and osteoporosis. Above these, with the plentiful nutrient and various effect, tuna, abalone, fish cake, sea cucumber, and bay salt are receiving great love from the world.
The attendees on the floor can use the receivers.
The great taste and nutrient of K-fish is going to create the new value.
Channel 1 is
and
English,
it is the
and
healthy
Channel 2
life.
is Korean, and the entire symposium will be broadcast live on the YouTube channel, and please set the channel for your benefit.
Fishery product from clean Korean sea, K-fish. We aim to put superb and healthy taste to go forward to the world and create new value. With appetizing texture, taste, and unique flavor, Korean red crab has so much popularity so that the resource of overfishing is outlawed. It is rich in essential amino acid, promoting insulin secretion to maintain biorhythms. The chitosan and kinin prevents body fat accumulation and also prevents cancer, diabetes, liver, and vessel-related disorders. Oyster, also called the milk of the sea since it is rich in calcium, is produced and exported from clean Korean sea with guaranteed safety approval from USA FDA. Oyster is abundant in taurine, helping brain development of children. It is also very effective in skin reproduction and elasticity, causing massive popularity as female beauty treatment food. It is also standing out as a stamina food for males since it stimulates hormone secretion. Flatfish is impregnated with omega-3 acid to increase metabolism, and also full of lysine and collagen needed for cell restoration. It helps quick recovery of body and skin aging prevention. Seaweed, manufactured in various forms including snack seaweed in seasoned flavor, can be a good alternative to replace popcorn or fried potato. It is rich in dietary fiber, effective in relieving cholesterol and colon cancer prevention. It also contains vitamin A and calcium, easing night blindness and osteoporosis. Above these, with the plentiful nutrient and various effect, tuna, abalone, fish cake, sea cucumber, and bay salt are receiving great love from the world. The great taste and nutrient of K-fish is going to create the new value. And it is the healthy life of the world. To share the value of K-Fish, healthy fishery product from clean Korean Sea will be delivered to kitchen table of world people. Fishery product from clean Korean Sea, K-Fish. We aim to put superb and healthy taste to go forward to the world and create new value. With appetizing texture, taste, and unique flavor, Korean red crab has so much fun.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start the Global Seafood Digital Trade Symposium soon at 3, so please take your seats and ready for this session.
Kinin prevents body fat accumulation and also prevents cancer, diabetes, liver, and vessel-related disorders. Oyster, also called the milk of the sea since it is rich in calcium, is produced and exported from clean Korean Sea with guaranteed safety approval from USA FDA. Oyster is abundant in taurine, helping brain development of children. It is also very effective in skin reproduction and elasticity, causing massive popularity as female beauty treatment food. It is also standing out as a stamina food for males since it stimulates hormone secretion. Flatfish is impregnated with omega-3 acid to increase metabolism, and also full of lysine and collagen needed for cell restoration.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Global Seafood Digital Trade Symposium will begin soon at 3 p.m. So please take your seats and be ready for this session. Thank you.
Seaweed and seasoned flavor can be a good alternative to replace popcorn or fried potato. It is rich in dietary fiber, effective in relieving cholesterol and colon cancer prevention. It also contains vitamin A and calcium, easing night blindness and osteoporosis. Above these, with a plentiful nutrient and various effect, tuna, abalone, fish cake, sea cucumber, and bay salt are receiving great love from the world. The great taste and nutrient of K-Fish is going to create the new value. And it's the healthy life.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, the Global Seafood Digital Trade Symposium will begin soon at 3 p.m. Today's event is comprised of presentations and discussion sessions. Please take your seat and be ready for this session. Thank you very much.
Fishery product from clean Korean Sea, K-Fish. put superb and healthy taste to go forward to the world and create new value. With appetizing texture, taste, and unique flavor, Korean red crab has so much popularity so that the resource of overfishing is outlawed. It is rich in essential amino acid, promoting insulin secretion to maintain biorhythms. The chitosan and quinin prevents body fat accumulation and also prevents cancer, diabetes, liver, and vessel-related disorders. Oyster, also called the milk of the sea since it is rich in calcium, is produced and exported from clean Korean sea with guaranteed safety approval from USA FDA. Oyster is abundant in taurine, helping brain development of children. It is also very effective in skin reproduction and elasticity, causing massive...
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start the Global Seafood History Trade Symposium. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for taking your time out of busy schedule to attend this event online and offline, and welcome. I am your host, and my name is Tae Lee, a researcher at the Korea Maritime Institute, KMI. The theme of this forum is cooperative schemes to build a global seafood digital trade ecosystem, and experts from Europe, the US, China will make presentations and hold discussions on this topic. Now the global trade is rapidly adopting digital technology, and I hope that this event will lead to meaningful discussions on the changes taking place in seafood digital trade. Before beginning, allow me to introduce today's attendees. First of all, President Myeong-seng Jung of ISTF will make an opening speech and serve as a moderator for the discussion. Next, Mr. Marcio Castro de Souza, Senior Fishery Industry Officer of FAO, will give a keynote speech via video. We are also joined by presenters, Professor Adrian Coronado Mondragon from Royal Holloway University of London, Professor Renita Murimi from University of Dallas of the US, Ms. Jiyeon Kim, researcher of K-Fish Information Center in KMI, and Managing Director Fan Shu-bing of Beijing Seabridge Marketing Company. As panelists, we have Mr. Gong Jae-seung, head of Triage Company Limited, Mr. Park Moon-gu, Executive Director of Samjeong KPMG, Mr. Francisco Blaha, MCS Senior Expert of Institutional Fisheries Advisor, and Mr. Kenneth Katapono, Managing Director of Traceable Solution. Thank you very much for your participation. First, we'll hear congratulatory remarks from President Myeong-seng Jung of ISTF.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Despite the COVID-19 pandemic, I see a great turnout here. Thank you very much for your attendance. I am president of the International Seafood Trade Forum, Jung Myeong-seng. I'd like to thank all the presenters, discussants, and many distinguished guests for joining this 14th ISTF Global Seafood Digital Trade Symposium. First of all, I'd like to thank Marcio Castro de Souza, Senior Fishery Industry Officer from FAO, for accepting our offer to give a keynote speech, and also Professor Adrian Coronado Mondragon from Royal Holloway University of London. Thank you very much for your attendance. Professor Renita Murimi from University of Dallas in the United States. Thank you very much. Mr. Fan Shubing from Beijing Seabridge Marketing, and researcher Kim Ji-yeon from KMI. Thank you very much for your presence here. In addition, I would like to thank Jason Kong from Triage, and Mr. Park Moon-gu from KPMG Korea, and Mr. Francisco Blaha, MCS Senior Expert of the Institutional Fisheries Advisor. Thank you very much. And Mr. Kenneth Catafono from Treeseeable Solution. Thank you very much. And also, I'd like to thank all the participants joining us physically and virtually. As you know, the international trade environment is witnessing great change, and its paradigm is shifting with the ICT innovations such as artificial intelligence, big data, and blockchain. And there is a acceleration of paradigm shift to digital trade. In the area of fisheries, centering on the government and industry and businesses, blockchain traceability pilot project is underway. All the paper-based fisheries distribution and contracts have been done, used to be done based on paper, but now we are codifying them using smart technology. And the global trade and fisheries is $3.1 billion. And since 2015, its size is growing gradually and on a steady basis. Against this backdrop, today's International Seafood Trade Forum has invited various experts to help us better understand the changing export environment for fishery products. And it will be a very meaningful occasion to discuss the future of the world seafood trade market and ways to cooperate in creating a global seafood digital trade ecosystem. I would like to thank the organizers and participants for making this gathering possible. And also, my special thanks must go to all the attendees who are being here with us. I hope today's event will be a great venue for sharing thoughts and ideas for meaningful discussions where we pull wisdom and learn from each other. In closing, I hope all of you, whether through the hard time posed by the COVID-19 pandemic, I really want you to be safe and healthy. And I'm looking forward to talking to each other in person at an earlier date. That's my wish. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Jung, for your kind remark. And let me invite our keynote speaker, Marcio Cadestre de Souza, FAO officer.
Good afternoon. Good morning. On behalf of FAO, first I would like to thank the organizers. I would like to thank, it's already the third or fourth time that FAO participates in the International Seafood Trade Forum. It's a great honor for us. And we completely agree with the importance of digital trade and how this new environment can foster the international trade of fisheries and aquaculture products. I'm going to share my screen just to guide my presentation. And first, I'm going basically to present the main drivers of the fisheries and aquaculture sector. And please bear in mind that this map is a third-party map, so it does not endorses any position from FAO or for the UN system in terms of borders or name or designations. But I just would like to show the importance of fish trade. We are in a global environment completely regarding fish trade. We do have a significant participation of developing and developed countries in fish trade. We do have many big producers that are also big importers of fish products. So it's a highly diversified and inclusive market for countries, but also it's quite important. If we think about the value in terms of exports of fish products compared to other animal proteins, we are going to see that fish is equivalent to the sum of beef, pork, and poultry. In fact, it's more than that. So we are dealing with a highly tradable and valuable commodity, which has a participation pattern of many developed and developing countries, which is key to determine how this trade takes place. But also, when you think about international trade of fisheries and aquaculture products and what happened basically with the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen many changes in the market. We have seen fisheries, as I mentioned, is a very inclusive sector. And we do have very long value chains. Sometimes a fish is caught in one country, exported to another for processing, and re-exported to a third one for consumption. So this long value chain was a very strong factor in terms of how the pandemic affected the sector. We are one of the only animal proteins that we do have a dual origin pattern. The product can come from wild capture or the product can come from aquaculture. And that creates difference in distribution patterns, in consumption patterns. It creates a lot of different that also has been impacted by the pandemic. Of course, we have different phases in the pandemic. It varies according to the country. At the beginning, we have a panic buying, particularly with canned products to stockpile at home. But then we are already seeing after that new markets being assessed, regional and domestic markets being promoted with products that in the past used to go only to international markets. So there was a big change in the market, but of course the pandemic is not over yet, and we are indeed still facing problems in terms of higher transportation costs and hidden trade barriers associated with safety requirements. So this is a nice snapshot. What are the major effects of the pandemics? But the sector is very resilient. The sector is recovering very fast. Those are FAO projections about for 2021. And you can see that the trade value is already higher than than 2019. So the sector is starting to rebound. 2020 was still a difficult year for the sector, but some FAO projections, we continue to say to refer that the increase and the participation of countries in Asia is continue to be quite important. We are going to have more diversified importing countries joining the market, and that's a very important aspect for this digital environment that I'm going to mention briefly. So those are the basic FAO projections for the sector. We are going more or less to continue to see a split of 50-50 between aquaculture and wild capture. When you talk specifically about the digital trade of fisheries and aquaculture products, I will divide that and trying to set more or less the stage for the upcoming speakers in basically three different angles. We have the documentation angle. we have the transparency angle, and we have the consumer angle. In terms of the documentation angle, of course, a digital environment can enhance trade, can facilitate trade, and we do have an international organization devoted with the trade facilitation agreement, that one of the focus of the trade facilitation agreement is exactly to foster the simplification of documentation in exports. We have, for example, a single window of to facilitate trade in one of the mechanisms of the trade facilitation agreement. So this is more the regulatory angle. But of course, that angle has a considerable impact on trade. Many countries still have a lot of documents associated with fish import, fish export, a lot of certificates, a lot of stamps, a lot of forms to be filled. And this area of the trade facilitation agreement is definitely one point that can contribute to a more positive environment in order to have an even more increased trade of fisheries and aquaculture products. The second angle that I want to mention is the transparency angle. And the transparency angle is basically associated with the dimension of sustainability and the dimension of food safety. We can, and then of course, the legality of the product is also associated with this transparency angle. When we talk about transparency angle, I'm talking about all the instruments, all the procedures that have been created and are being created in terms of traceability, in terms of tracking IUU fishing, in terms of tracking labor standards in the fish production, in terms of facilitating the issuance of food safety certification. So it's all this environment that tries to address sustainability from its three angles, plus the legality of the product. And that is a very important angle. Many countries, I'm not talking about governments, but I'm talking about market requirements. Many market requirements nowadays from the private sector, they need to know about information about the product in terms of traceability, in terms of not contributing, for example, for child labor, for slavery, or for being sustainable. So those elements are indeed becoming a market requirement by the private sector in many markets. And also, of course, we do have the digital world from a consumer angle in terms of live streaming, in terms of auction to buy fish and fishery products, particularly during the pandemic. But in addition to all those issues that I have mentioned, we have some preconditions that are indeed necessary to make this digital environment progress, because otherwise there is a great chance that this market environment can become indeed a barrier to trade, and that's something that we do not want to have that happen. So it's fundamental that we do have cooperation between countries. Cooperation between countries is fundamental for the exchange of information, for the acceptance and the mutual acceptance and the recognition of third parties, documents, security schemes like blockchains, digital security schemes like blockchains. Of course, we also need the private sector involved. We need the private sector willingness in terms of, okay, engaging in this aspect, it's going to reduce my costs, it's going to increase the transparency of my products, it's going to increase the market penetration of my products. In addition to that, there is a horizontal demand now about more information about the products. Consumers are demanding that. Consumer wants to know more about the product. And this digital environment that tries to track the product is a very strong component. But of course, as I mentioned, all those measures to include the digital world and to foster that, they cannot become unnecessary barriers to trade. And that's why cooperation between countries is important. We have to take into consideration the needs of developing countries. We have to think that the majority of fish production is indeed originated in developing countries. And we have to have a pragmatic balance between what are the enhancing trade benefits and what are the burden for some countries in terms of enlarging this digital domain. Nevertheless, again, it's a very positive scenario for the environment, for the sustainability at large, to bring more transparency. And that's just, I would like to finish here to say that transparency and information is a key element in digital environment, in business, and it's becoming even more critical. So FAO has a specific program in FAO devoted to spread information about fisheries and aquaculture products. It's called Globefish. We have, for example, several publications that analyze trade of fisheries and aquaculture products. And we have just a new product, which is called Globefish Market Profile, that shows for more than 200 countries the main economic and fish data for that country in a snapshot. What are the main products produced? What are the main products exported? What are the main products imported? On 3 pages. This is for Korea, but we have for 200 products. Again, on behalf of FAO, I just would like to thank the organizers for inviting us, congratulate for this year event's topic. It's quite relevant, and congratulate also for carrying out this event during such a difficult time. So thank you very much. Thank you.
If you leave comments and questions in the chat box, we are going to draw lots and give presents to winners. So please actively participate in the gift giveaway event. The first presentation is about global seafood trade needs to prepare for digital transformation. So Professor Adrian Mondragan will make a presentation.
All right, so good morning, everyone. Thank you very much to the organizing committee for the opportunity to take part in this event. My name is Adrian Coronado from Royal Holloway, and I'm just going to share my screen with you so I can start my presentation. Right, okay, so well, as mentioned before, the title of my presentation is about the global seafood trade needs to prepare for digital transformation. And this is a very important topic, and it's really about managing the process of digitalization in food supply chains. And I'm going to present a conceptual approach in the fisheries sector. My presentation has been structured as follows. First one, just a brief introduction to the changes in global fisheries trade due to the transformation digital era. Actually, the presenter from the FAO has given a very, very detailed explanation of what's happening in global fisheries regarding transformation and the adoption of the need to adopt digital technologies. The second part would be global supply chains digitalization, market trends in fisheries, including seafood, and then followed by the potential for future growth of digitalization global supply chains. And we're going to talk about the conceptual approach used in the fisheries sector, more specifically in snow crab. And then I'm going to talk about limitations facing digitalization of supply chains fisheries. And finally, what would be some of the measures or tasks to revitalize digital trades and fisheries sector. The first section tells about the change in global fisheries due to the transformation of the digital era. We all know that fisheries represent a major economic activity all over the world. We see how, despite the pandemic, there's been an increasing demand of fisheries products, especially from developing countries. And as already mentioned by one of the participants from the FAO, well, the scale of fisheries sector and the global fish production is quite substantial. For example, these numbers from 2018 shows that about 171 million tons was the production of global fish. And also this includes aquaculture representing 47% of the total. And this increased actually to 53% if we include non-food uses like reduction to fish meal and fish oil. So we can see that the impact of fisheries all over the world is very important and it's growing. And however, the fisheries sector is a sector which actually deals with quite a lot of challenges. Among them, we can find freshness, the waste associated to fisheries, and also now these days sustainability. We now know that many countries around the world, even consumers, actually they are looking to buy fish products who actually come from sustainable sources. So another challenge is that the fisheries sector is facing in terms of it's been traditionally seen as a low-tech primary sector, really. As long we can see also that agriculture has been seen also as a perceived low-tech primary sector. So in this case, well, fisheries are going to a big transformation process in order to change this view that people have that is a low-tech sector in terms of adopting now new technologies which will disrupt how this sector has been operating for the past few years. So if we want to look at actually what's the digitalization process is affecting the fisheries sector, well, basically we can see that new information technologies are radically transforming how the value chain of the fisheries industry is been operating for the past few years, especially the emergence of new technologies are giving the opportunity to change this paradigm within the fisheries sector. We can find that, for example, technologies like cyber-physical system interfaces, also now these days with Internet of Things, what we can find out sensors connected to the internet, also wireless and network sensor theory, which can help to optimize the use of power and connectivity of sensors. Also, we can find the use of predictive data analytics, which can be a very powerful tool in terms to identify trends associated to the capture of fish. Also, we can find the use of cloud computing, which can give the opportunity to different companies to adopt, especially small companies to adopt new technologies, and also the use of blockchain technology, very important. Have this distributed ledger, which can be used to increase the security of and guarantee the safety also as well of the products associated to fisheries, and of course the increased challenging of cybersecurity constraints, which have been transforming on a permanent basis the landscape associated to the value chain of the fisheries sector. So all of these technologies actually as a whole are transforming how fisheries are being managed, and also the future of this sector. And we can also argue that the process of digitalization, IoT, Internet of Things, has been especially disruptive to global supply chains. And this is because when we look at IoT, Internet of Things, we can see that there's a perennial source of data that can be used for decision making. And this also applies for fisheries, because with the collection of data coming from different sensors, IoT, it may be possible to make decisions which will affect the performance of the sector. So if we want to look what would be the potential for future growth of digitalization and global supply chains, well, the questions that managers ask is really what to do with all the data that has been captured from these different sensors, which represent IoT. And the problem is because in many occasions, the managers will basically underutilize the raw data. They may use the data to maybe carry some projections and some very basic analysis or very simple statistic analysis. But in most cases, actually, what happens is that all of this data is not used at all, really. It's just wasted and has not used. And the potential actually using this data can be quite significant in order to help the business and the sector actually to improve its operations. So, and rather than ignoring it, the potential actually to use that information is quite substantial in order to help the sector grow. So what we can say about the today's business environment is that digitalization actually can be seen as a new paradigm and will give new opportunities to the fisheries sector. And we can see that this can continue to grow in the coming years, but it's important actually to identify how it would be good to exploit this information, all this data in order to help the business. So when all this proliferation of different technologies happening, it's important to explore what would be the benefit of using all this data generating, especially from sensors associated to IoT, Internet of Things in the fishery sector. So we can think, and there are many examples in the literature and practical examples all over the world in which, for example, the use of sensor technology can be used to improve the quality of the products, especially when it comes to monitoring the conditions in, for example, live products are transported from the point of capture all the way to the final consumer. And we can see many examples that have been are available in the literature and also in many companies right now around the world. For example, the transportation of lobster, live shellfish, in which, for example, these animals, when they're transported live, they command a higher value compared if they are butchered. So that's why the importance of IoT sensors in which can be used to monitor the conditions in which these animals are transported. For example, it can be used to monitor pH levels, the salinity, ammonia levels, and so on, in order to guarantee that, and also to maximize the survivability of these animals where they are transported. So it's really about maximizing the survivability of these animals so they can arrive live and in perfect conditions to the end users, which in this case, most cases is actually retail and restaurants, in which consumers, they pay a high price, they pay a lot of money to eat these animals when they're alive from these places. So this is just an example of how sensor technology can be used actually to improve the survivability. And of course, this represents more financial gains to the companies and to all the sector because they are guaranteeing that the animals arrive alive and in this particular case. But in the case that I want to present to you is really about how can the use of IoT technology and the data generated from IoT sensors can be used in order to identify trends that can help fisheries improve their catch and also improve better the use of the resources, the deployment of resources required to catch, in this case, snow crab. And snow crab, well, basically is a crustacean that is captured in the Atlantic coast of Canada off the island of Newfoundland. And in that area of Canada, there's a network of buoys called Smart Atlantic. And more particularly, there's an area called Placentia Bay, in which actually was one of the main areas for fishing snow crab in the Atlantic coast of Canada. So in this case, well, this information is generated by these buoys, and a lot of information regarding the ocean conditions. But interesting to know is that all this data that is being generated by this network of buoys is not used at the moment by all the harvesters of snow crab. Most of the time is ignored or neglected. So in this case, The interesting thing about the harvesting crustaceans like snow crab is this because these are migratory animals, and usually the harvesting season, the season for catching this animal is quite short. Usually starts around April, May, and it lasts until the end of June every year. And this animal actually lives in very narrow temperatures between -1 degrees and 3 degrees. So when the water temperature starts to get warmer, the animal will migrate to colder water. So it's very important for the crab harvesters actually to have a lot of knowledge really in terms of knowing the conditions in which it's possible to maximize the capture of this animal, of the crab. So we can find that many of the captains of the fishing vessels have a lot of years of experience, tacit knowledge about where are the best conditions to capture an animal. But certainly the use of data, the analysis of data regarding the ocean conditions can help these people to maximize their harvesting of crab instead of relying only on tacit knowledge or past experience. So more going to the specific case of the Smart Atlantic Alliance. It's a network of oceanic observing sensors in Atlantic Canada, and this network of buoys, which can find, and some of them actually are off the coast of Nova Scotia and Canada, but most of them actually are based in Labrador and in Newfoundland. This actually project actually is championed by the Marine Institute of the Memorial University of Newfoundland and also the Institute for Ocean Research and Enterprise in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and Canada. So the smart buoys can be used for oceanic observation, and these buoys actually operate 24/7, and they actually can be used to collect a lot of data about the ocean conditions. Some of the ocean conditions include, for example, the wind speed, peak wind speed, wind direction, air temperature, barometric pressure, sea surface temperature, current velocity, direction, wave height, wave direction, and peak wave period. So all of this information, actually, all this data is quite valuable and has a lot of use, especially for understanding the conditions of the ocean, but has very little use in terms of helping fisheries improve the catch of, in this case, snow crab, which is the most important ocean harvest in the area of Newfoundland. For example, this year, the price of a pound of snow crab was about $5.35. So it's important. And in the area of Newfoundland, for example, this year, the allowance tons of snow crab was 38,000 tons of snow crab that was allowed for this year. So it's an important, in terms of the economy of the region, is quite an important product for the fisheries in that area. So going to a specific area that we wanted to analyze is the area associated to the area of Placentia Bay in Newfoundland. In Newfoundland, Labrador, actually, it's possible to find 5 fisheries divisions as defined as by the Northwest Atlantic Fisheries Organization. Actually, 2 HA, 3 KL, 3 PS, 4R, and 3 PS. And each of them, actually, every year, they are given a limit on how many tons of snow crab they can capture. However, only a handful of areas have smart buoys, which are part of the Smart Atlantic Initiative. So in this case, for example, we wanted to focus on the Red Island Shoal buoy in Placentia Bay, which is here, is part of the 3PS area. And for that purpose, we collected a large data set of data that's been generated by that buoy in particular over the past few years. We developed an algorithm written in Python to select the data that we needed to analyze it and then generate predictive analysis, scatter diagram to understand what's the trend related to the conditions in which it could be possible to maximize the capture of smart crab in that particular area. Okay, so what we did, we collected data for the Red Island Shoal buoy in Placentia Bay, and the data covered 4 years. And in particularly, well, the conditions is based on the temperature range associated to the capture of the animal, which is between -1 degree and 3 degrees, which are the optimal conditions for the capture of snow crab. And we identify the season dates for each year, also the duration, how many days associated to each year, also the total usable readings associated to that particular year, and also what was the allowable catch tons for that particular area. And that year for that particular area that we're investigating, which was the 3PS fishery division, as shown here. So we analyzed the data, and we had also to clear the data from all those readings which are missing. And in total, we got just over 10,000 readings which were usable for us that we could analyze. And what we did, we performed a predictive analysis of the readings related to the average sea surface of the temperature and the air temperature around that area. So, which are the conditions associated to the catch of snow crab. So what we did, we carried out scatter diagrams in time series analyzing, which represent a very powerful tool to identify which are the patterns associated to the capture regarding the conditions of the snow crab. And given the fact that snow crab is a migratory animal, which lives in very narrow water temperatures between -1 and 3 degrees, we want to actually to maximize the conditions, to understand the conditions in which this animal can be captured, and of course, maximize the capture yields for the fisheries. So what we did, we performed the scatter diagram for each of these years. For example, for the year 2016, we identified, for example, the water temperatures between 0 degrees and 3 degrees. For the next year, we did that for -1 and 3 degrees. And this usually was between at the end of April, beginning of May, in which is possible to maximize the yields because the water is cold and most of the animals are in that area. So as soon as the water starts to get warmer, the animals will migrate outside that area, will move north, and it will be impossible to use data to monitor the conditions in which these animals are because they are located in that area. But as soon as when they move out of that area, we won't have a reference about the conditions of where they are, the area where they're moving. And also we did the same for the years 2019, in which we clearly see these patterns in which, for example, the temperatures between 0 degrees and 3 degrees, the same for -1 and 3 degrees, in which we see that when the water is cold, it's possible to maximize the yields regarding the capture of snow crab. So this type of elements actually can be used to help the captains of the vessels to better program, to better deploy the resources when it comes to the capture of snow crab. And this is something that hasn't been implemented because still the fishery sector has been perceived as a low-tech sector. Also, the sector for the past few years actually has been subject to problems such as the lack of quality, also of the falsification of records, and also malicious products mislabeling. So we believe that through the use of this type of technology, IoT sensors, can help actually to bring an end to these practices happening. And also another important aspect that we can say is that in specific case of the capture snow crab, we can see that the use of IoT and predictive analysis will help the fisheries to better optimize their operations. This is important because they have to schedule and plan and maximize the allowable landings. These companies usually are small companies and they have limited resources. So if this type of technology can help them better planning, definitely will help to become more profitable and stay in business for many years to come. And one way actually that we have been envisioned to help the deployment of this on a practical basis is about the development of a user interface, which can help these fisheries, for example, to maximize and have access to this information, which is generated by the Smart Atlantic network of buoys. So this actually can help them to have access to this data and analysis on their fingertips. So that's an option. the development of this type of application to help these companies exploit commercially this information which is generated every day. Like right now, for example, the same data that have been generated by this network of voice. So what could be the task that we can consider to revitalize digital trade in fisheries based on what we just this particular case regarding snow crab? Well, we can say that this approach certainly has the potential to be applied to other products, not only snow crab, but also we can think about lobster would be another example. And certainly the use of IoT technologies can help to monitor the history. And of course, very important these days, the provenance tracking. That's right, from capture production to the final consumer, because we know that sustainability is now a very important issue. And certainly IoT can provide the data that can be needed in order to guarantee provenance tracking and product history. And also in the fisheries, we can say that utilization is a major impact, having a major impact from the point of foraging, capture, and all the way to the final consumer. So we believe that this type of technology can help revitalize fisheries in places such as Atlantic Canada, which some of these companies are quite small and they have limited resources. And this type of access to digitalization actually will help them to improve their operations. So time series is just one example of data analytics that can be used in order to help companies, but the tools that actually can be used for data analysis are far more, and that can be certainly have an impact in terms of scheduling very important fishing capture operations. And also regarding the policy about digital trade, we can see that the operations or the benefits actually are substantial. We can see that, for example, the use of all this technology eventually can facilitate the creation of catch certificates. Also, this can be expanded to get exports, health certificates, comply with rules of origin for trading, free trade. And also when it comes to endangered fish and shellfish, this is important because of sustainability issues, for example, and of course the customs requirements that can help with the export documents, among others. So all the data that's generated from IoT in fisheries actually can be expanded and will have an impact in terms of getting all these extra benefits that we can see here. And certainly the utilization of the fishery supply chains will require government support. Some of the players that we have here are small companies which may have limited resources. So in this case, we can see that government support is important in terms of in the form of subsidies, and also in terms of providing the education and the training that the sector needs in order to remain competitive and sustainable for the years to come. So, well, thank you much for your attention, and I'm happy to answer any comments, questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor, for your presentation about the digital changes in fisheries. Our next presentation will be made by Professor Renita Murini from the University of Dallas in the United States on the topic, how will blockchain transform global seafood distribution?
Hello, my name is Renita Murini, and my topic will be on how blockchain can transform the global seafood distribution technology. I will ask for a minute to share my screen. Okay. All right, so before we begin, I'd like to thank the Korea Maritime Institute and the International Seafood Trade Forum for inviting me to talk about this topic. In my presentation today, there will be three main themes. The first one is envisioning how blockchain can enhance seafood distribution in three specific areas: monitoring, analytics, and logistics. This is not a comprehensive set of areas where blockchain can come in, but we're definitely scratching the surface. The second theme in my presentation will be specific successful implementations of blockchain for the seafood industry. This includes Fishcoin, IBM Food Trust, and Traceable. In fact, on the lineup today of presenters, there is Kenneth from Traceable, and I'm very excited to have the opportunity to listen to him later. And the last topic in my presentation is looking to the future, where we are talking about challenges and opportunities for bringing in blockchain to contribute to small-scale fisheries and sustainable trade. So moving on, a little bit about me. I'm Associate Professor of Cybersecurity at the University of Dallas, and my research areas are in blockchain, cybersecurity, and network science. I'm also the founder and CEO of a blockchain startup called Blocks for Earth. So looking at the current status of the kinds of technology that are used in global seafood distribution. As Adrian mentioned in his presentation before mine, fisheries are kind of perceived as low tech, and there is opportunity for technology to infiltrate just about every aspect of fisheries. Now, the entities that are actually involved in fisheries know that there is nothing low tech about it, that technology can help enhance so many aspects of fisheries, from monitoring to logistics to ocean health data collection. And so these are some of the things that we'll be talking about today. First of all, monitoring. Monitoring is key so that we're aware of the status of our systems. As we all know, knowledge is key, awareness is key, and unless we have data and evidence to confirm our hunches or back up our hypothesis, it is difficult for us to move forward in a determinate way. So electronic monitoring systems are very essential because fisheries produce more than 90 million pounds of seafood each year and employ more than 10 million people. And these are part of what we call as the global blue economy. There is an incredible amount of contribution to the global economy from fisheries. But all of these are being challenged by facts that are inevitable, facts like climate change, illegal fishing, and fishery operations that are outdated in technology. So this is where blockchain can come in, because all the monitoring of data can be stored on the blockchain. Monitoring can be in two broad areas. We can have monitoring in at-sea technology, which is IoT devices and sensors that are fitted to the vessels and are constantly automatically monitoring the number of trips, the amount of catch, the quality of catch, and also monitoring outside the sea. So in the places where all this data is being stored, ensuring that all of the fishery operations are compliant with regional and global regulations, as well as continuous auditing and reporting. One of the things that is fundamental to global seafood trade, even if it is aquaculture, is the health of our oceans. Our oceans are home to so many fragile ecosystems. And traditionally, research for ocean health has been in the form of expeditionary research. Large ships or marine vessels that are equipped with all kinds of scientific instruments, which conduct research over a longitudinal basis, years and years worth of data that is collected from a very specific, narrow section of the ocean. That's because about 71% of the earth is covered by the waters. And understanding ocean health requires cross-disciplinary, very expensive collaborations. And so technology over the years has advanced to keep up with this. Underwater robots have been helping with a lot of these exploratory, expeditionary research activities. All of these underlined parts on my slide are links, which are just one of many different applications for ocean health monitoring. There's the Copernicus project, which also does ocean monitoring and ocean cleanup. Many of us have heard of the great garbage patch that's floating in the Pacific, and there are several others that are not of that size but still pose a danger to the ocean. The NOAA has formed a very significant collaboration with fisheries where they share data from satellite imaging with fisheries, and that way the fisheries can plan ahead of time on how to structure their operations. That's called EcoCast. Another very important source of um, activity in the oceans, apart from seafood, is deep sea mining. The surface of our Earth has been extensively explored for many kinds of metals and minerals, and it turns out that the surface of the ocean floor can also be explored to look for deep sea mining to give us some idea of the kinds of deposits that are hidden beneath those surfaces. Ocean health monitoring is also important for the species that live in the oceans. It can prevent our species from overfishing, accidental catch, and pollution. And this is not where blockchain has been extensively used currently, but these are areas where blockchain can come in and significantly disrupt how current operations are being carried out. Apart from large scale fishing operations, small scale fisheries are a key component of the blue economy. Small scale fisheries employ 90% of the people around the world who make a living from fishing. And helping small scale fisheries come up to par with technology, especially with blockchain, can also help in meeting the UN 2030 sustainable goals. Um, these four goals are listed on the slide here. They can also be found separately. But small scale fisheries, since they make their living primarily from fishing activities, it is important for us to be able to offer them solutions that can help them to compete with the bigger companies and that can help them provide a livelihood for themselves and their families and their communities. Also, as Marcio pointed out earlier in his presentation, consumers are becoming more and more cognizant of the fact that their food needs to be sustainable. And knowing that their food has come from a smaller location can help drive up the amount and quality of seafood trade. So, as many of you might know, blockchain is essentially a distributed ledger. There is no intermediary, either in the form of an institution or an individual, that decides what kind of data gets put in, when it gets put in. At its premise, it is a network of nodes, and these nodes are governed by some kind of consensus algorithm. Consensus is how they decide what kind of data is approved to be put on a block, and ultimately these blocks get added to the chain. With the help of these algorithms, these nodes on the blockchain network spread information through all the nodes so that any given point, the state of the network, the state of the chain is made available to all nodes. And once data is added to a block, which gets added to the chain, it is immutable. We cannot tamper with it. Tampering with it requires significant resources on the part of an intentional or unintentional attacker. And so, because we cannot tamper with it, blockchain is considered to be an immutable source or an immutable store of data. All of this is extremely helpful in the traceability and the provenance initiatives that are in the global seafood distribution industry. At the top of the slide, you'll see 5 different initiatives that are currently using blockchain for seafood distribution. The first one is a consortium for legality and traceability. It's called SALT. And the others are similar other initiatives. Um, there is a slightly older report coming from 2017, but it was incredibly forward looking in its findings. It said that we need full chain seafood traceability, and that includes tracing the fishing vessels, their trips to and from the dock, as well as for small scale fisheries. The kind of data that can be obtained from managing these fisheries, from the quality of food that's being fed to the fish, the stock of the fish, which denotes their health, as well as other conditions that are important for maintaining a healthy fishery operation. Additionally, as the previous presenters have mentioned, compliance with local and international regulations is incredibly important. There is a lot of paperwork to be filled out, and blockchain has, because of its inherent properties of immutability and transparency, it lends itself well to record keeping. In fact, even outside of global seafood, there are exclusive blockchain applications just for record keeping, where governments at the local and national levels have pivoted to using blockchain as a source and a store for records of all kinds, property records, title deeds, certificates. And so I can see the same thing being made possible with the global seafood industry. It is also important for sustainability operations. With blockchain, there is no central entity, no intermediary, so costs are significantly reduced when data is stored on the chain, because once the smart contracts are in place and the consensus algorithms are working well and the system is secure, the system kind of has a life of its own. It keeps working. Even if certain nodes go down, the others are capable of picking up from where the network last stopped working for a few nodes. And so blockchain itself, although there are critics that mention its processing cost, evolution in blockchain has led to the point where we're seeing more and more kinds of innovation with fewer gas fees, which are transaction fees, faster processing speeds. So there is a natural synergy between blockchain and its applications for the global seafood trade. And it's also important in traceability initiatives. As you may know, there are different kinds of blockchains and many different use cases. So one provider may pick blockchain A, another provider might pick blockchain B. As the state of research in blockchain advances and as the industry itself moves forward toward very innovative use cases, there will be more interoperability between different blockchains so that the end user or the consumer can find a seamless interface to interact with the data that is stored on the blockchain. So the second part of my presentation is going to look at specific successful implementations of blockchain. One of them is called Fishcoin, and the emphasis of Fishcoin is on data sharing. It's a protocol for data sharing and takes a platform approach to sharing data about seafood. And just like in traditional blockchain, for mining blocks, you get certain rewards. Fishcoin was built with the idea of rewarding all stakeholders with incentives for sharing data. And all the data that is shared is on their chain. So if someone wants to access this data, they just need to go to the chain and see this data and trace it all the way back to the first block, the Genesis block. And the different stakeholders who are rewarded are fishers and farmers. These are obvious, but it also rewards the producers. It rewards the institutions who deal with the supply chain. On the blockchain, the applications that are developed are called distributed apps or dApps, and Fishcoin has a mechanism for rewarding the dApp developers also. It's pretty much like the early 2000s we had the iTunes Store and the Google Play Store, and developers got rewarded for making applications and loading them there. And as more and more users got into those ecosystems, the developers began to see bigger profits from their applications. So it's the same for blockchain, and the industry is moving very quickly in that aspect. Fishcoin also rewards the makers of IoT devices. These IoT devices and wireless sensors are all fitted to the various tools, the vessels that are involved in fisheries, whether it's for the actual vessels that are moving onto the ocean or devices that measure the temperature, salinity, pH levels. So a fish coin is one successful application, and its emphasis is exclusively on data sharing. The second application that I want to highlight today is a collaboration between IBM and raw seafoods. Their emphasis was on traceability, in particular, the traceability of scallops. And, as I say about blockchain, I'm using a generic term, but really, blockchains can be customized for different kinds of applications. For example, a blockchain that's built for cryptocurrency transactions will store different kind of data as compared to a blockchain that stores records about property taxes. So, for the raw seafoods collaboration with IBM, they created a blockchain that stored information about the origin, the date of harvest, and the quality of the scallops on this blockchain. And their goal was to create a story of the seafood, so a consumer, the end user, would be able to see where the scallop originated from and what was the journey of that scallop on its way to the plate. And the initial results were very promising. The sales of scallops increased 30% over the previous year from when they had implemented IBM's blockchain. And the next application is the one that was developed in collaboration with Traceable Solutions, which I mentioned. We have Kenneth here from Traceable who will speak a little later. And so he'll have more information about this, of course. But this one was developed with a focus on the fresh and frozen tuna market. It tracks this fish from vessel to supermarket, and its goal was also to prevent IUU kind of activities, which stand for illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing activities. It was a consortium collaboration between the World Wildlife Federation of New Zealand and the Blockchain Supply Chain Traceability Project. So as you see, that these are a very broad overview of three different kinds of blockchain applications. Not completely mutually exclusive, but they have their own niche within the global seafood industry. So looking to the future, how can blockchain impact the global seafood industry? The first is, of course, as we mentioned, traceability. Consumers are becoming more and more aware of the need to determine how their food finds its way to the supermarket or to their homes. And Marcia's presentation very neatly mentioned three angles: the documentation angle, transparency angle, and the consumer angle. So that's where traceability comes in. It's also important for the bigger picture, the health of our oceans and the health of our blue economy. Lots of people depend on the oceans for their livelihood. And it is important that we come up with solutions like blockchain that are able to reward them and cut off unnecessary middleman fees and reduce the time that it takes for the various processing to take place. Because as we know, seafood is perishable. It has very unique constraints on how to store it and process it, and to do it in such a way that it still preserves its value by the time it reaches the end user is important. and the kind of data that it requires to be able to guarantee its safe transit from source to destination can be stored neatly on the blockchain. And once we have access to the data, we can quickly identify inefficiencies in those operations. And because blockchain is kind of self-sustaining, once we identify the right kind of blockchain and the proper algorithms and customize it to a specific application within the seafood industry, then it supports incentives for everyone involved. Like the fish coin project showed, everybody can be rewarded for it. Fishers, small scale fishers, and the IoT makers, the the suppliers of various tools that are involved in fisheries. So it allows for distributed governance, and we are able to guarantee pretty much like fair trade cocoa or precious minerals. We are able to determine how much the small scale fisher actually gets for their efforts and to be able to compensate them fairly. But blockchain is not a solution for everything. It is a fairly new technology. And it started really in the year 2008 when Satoshi Nakamoto published his white paper about Bitcoin. And many, there is still some confusion about blockchain and Bitcoin, and many people think they're synonymous. But Bitcoin is an application of blockchain, and it is in cryptocurrencies. But the underlying blockchain can be used in a variety of domains, such as record keeping and logistics and agriculture and climate technology. So it is important to determine that if we choose to use blockchain in the global seafood industry, what kind of blockchain? A public blockchain, a private blockchain, a consortium blockchain? And what kind of data should we store on the blockchain? So it is important to first have a proper understanding of the kind of system we need. The second is a follow-up technical considerations. How much data can we store on the chain? And how fast is the chain? How many transactions can it process? What are the gas fees involved, which is a transaction fees? And if a fishery decides to go with blockchain A and a competing fishery decides to go with blockchain B, but they're all part of a common consortium, is there interoperability, which the end user would really like, because they just need access to data without having to be shut out of one particular blockchain because it's not compatible with another. And at the same time, what is important is also buy-in from stakeholders. As Adrian mentioned, there are lots of different entities that are involved in fisheries, and they need to be able to come to an agreement that blockchain or a particular kind of blockchain is going to be able to help them perform their activities more efficiently. And this goes back to the first point here about the choice of type of blockchain. And that's why it's important to get all these stakeholders involved in these discussions and train them on how to use these technologies. Um, so the bottom line, and really the key takeaway from my presentation, is that there is a very natural intersection between blockchain use cases and the global seafood distribution technology, because blockchain is decentralized, distributed, immutable, and transparent. It offers a distributed global solution for many pain points in the seafood industry. And since the data is available for access, it shows how seafood travels, and it gives you broad visibility of data about various things. It helps us pinpoint where more efficiencies are needed. It helps us celebrate successes. And as I said, although blockchain was initially made famous by cryptocurrencies, but now there are increasing adoption and use cases in several domains, even within seafood. And there is, because of its ability to support different kinds of stakeholders and store data in a distributed manner, it very naturally helps in sustainability initiatives. But at the same time, there has to be an understanding that the right kind of blockchain has to be used, and specific applications within the industry have to be identified, because blockchain cannot, solve everything, all of the problems. It is quite possible that even one fishery uses different kinds of blockchains for different aspects of its operations. So this was a broad overview about how blockchain can help the global seafood distribution technology. Thank you for listening. And if you have questions, you may email me at this address. Thank you.
Professor Morimi, thank you very much. If you have any questions, you can leave your questions in the chat box on YouTube. The third speaker is going to make a presentation about Fisheries Digital Trade Use Manual to maximize FTA utilization. The speaker is Kim Ji-yeon, Senior Researcher at K Fish Information Center in KMI. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Kim Ji-yeon, a Senior Researcher at K Fish Information Center of KMI. Glad to meet you. My presentation topic is Fisheries Digital Trade Use Manual to Maximize FTA Utilization 1.0. When it comes to digital trade, it is a buzzword. Many people are talking about it, and many people want to know about it. So I believe there's an increasing number of people who are interested in that. Let's say you buy a home appliance. Then that product has manual, and the manual says how to use it and how to manage it, how to take care of it. So what is digital trade, and how can it be used, and how you can utilize it? That's the manual that I'm going to give you right now. Later, the speakers are going to give very specialized areas, and the previous speakers also talked about very specialized areas, but my presentation is a bit general. We need to revitalize and facilitate digital trade, so we need to define the concept of digital trade. So digital trade often entails e-commerce and service trade. But in the food industry, including fishery products, usually digital trade is occurring mainly through cross-border e-commerce. E-commerce uses the e-commerce platform, but now digital trade has more expanded concept, which is defined as e-business. As was mentioned earlier, e-business includes ICT technologies as well. So digital trade is a combination of e-commerce and e-business concept, enabling digital innovation in all the process of ordering, production, and shipping in global trade. Then why digital trade was emerged as a hot topic? Let me talk about the background. In 2020, against everyone's expectations, COVID-19 pandemic happened, and it worked as a trigger for digital transition. So it increased contactless business. In that process, new business models were established utilizing digital model. So there was a increasing requirement for a new business model using digital technologies. And also, we have seen an advancement of information and communication technologies. We actually did have those technologies, but during the pandemic area, there was more application of ICT. And also, not only fishery companies, but also we see an increasing number of startup companies. We have Twitch here and Bounty Palm. These are the examples of startups that are using ICT. And also, in major countries, they are working hard to promote digital trade through their policy efforts. And the last speaker will talk about the China's case, right? And you will learn that in China, there's more specific digital trade development in China. And also, 66 marine products will be allowed for cross-border digital trade. So China is quite open to cross-border digital trade. And also Germany and Japan are establishing digital trade policies. And also they're working hard to foster digital trade-based companies. Let me talk about the digital trade and its size. And we don't have established statistics on that, so let me talk about the global aspect of this. So this size and volume of digital trade includes the e-commerce and e-business. And in 2020, the volume was $3.7 billion, and it has grown by big volume. I believe in the future, up until 2026, there will be more growth. Now let's look at the current status and trends of global seafood digital trade market. In the global digital trade, fisheries doesn't account for a big part. And in 2020, the volume was $3.7 billion, and by 2026, it will jump five-fold. It is expected to increase 5 times. As was mentioned before, it's very likely to be blue economy. As was mentioned earlier, Asia takes up a big part in this market, which is followed by Europe. The Asia has a big part because of China and Vietnam and Korea, because these countries have advanced internet and the main users are the younger generation. So they're contributing to a bigger share of the digital trade and e-commerce. And also there's increasing interest in these markets, and also in European and North American markets, the digital trades are basically based on canned and processed products. And also we have B2B, it takes up a big part. So I believe the global e-commerce is based on B2B. So the digital trade and fisheries will also transition to B2B business. But we need to take interest in others section. So you can have some partnership with retailers, or you can have some collaborative work with other relevant parties. So these are categorized as others section. So let's look at the current trends of the digital trade in Korea. Korea's digital trade volume is actually, that volume has increased 150% in the last 2 years. And through digital trade, the global seafood and agriculture exports have increased by 19%. We don't have a specific data on fishery products only. So the global agriculture and seafood exports have increased 19% year on year in the digital trade. So it looks like It's not a big portion, but still it is on the gradual increase. What are the key factors of growth in digital trade? First, globally, there's a growing demand for seafood in the world. And also, there are deregulations on digital trade centering on China and other countries, and there are enabling policies. And also, there is an increasing number of e-commerce-based fishery startups, and also the mobile markets, which offer easier access is also increasing. And also, ICT-based e-business is more enabled based on IT technologies. Now, let's talk about the challenges and downside factors of global seafood digital trade. When you think about seafood, the preservation and storage and freezing and refrigerating, it generates a lot of cost. So there's a high initial cost of seafood, and many businesses are aware of that. And also, the online businesses have a lack of trust from consumers. These are the stumbling blocks for further facilitating digital trade. And also digital marketing and digital trade. In these areas, we don't have many experts and professionals here. And also on the global level, digital safeguard and the privacy, consumer privacy information are also posing issues. In terms of digital safety, especially digital taxes. So digital taxes are a problem. The United States actually imposed a digital tax of 25% on imported fishery products through Indian e-commerce, such as shrimp. So this was one example of a difficulty, and also there's a issue with the privacy protection. In order to revitalize global seafood digital trade, what needs to be checked out? Recently, there are international regulations related to digital trade, and CPTPP is one of those regulations. And it includes online consumer protection and paperless trade and privacy protection. And also there's a DEPA, Digital Partnership Agreement. Singapore, Chile, and New Zealand joined this agreement, DEPA, and it took effect in 2016. And last month, China also expressed its intent to join the DEPA. So we need to take interest in this area as well. In order to maximize the benefits of FTAs, how can we utilize digital trade? So we need to check WTO rules, whether WTO rules are applicable or not. And also, we need to review the needs to conclude new digital trade agreements. Then what is the current status of Korean seafood digital trade as of now? Following the trend on the global stage, Korea is also moving forward with Korean seafood digital trade ecosystem. So it is trying to establish a smart logistics system. It is investing a lot in this regard. So we need to diversify platforms to vitalize digital trade. The government created KPC brand and that's a platform for online transactions. Bountypalm and Triches, one of the companies that are participating in this conference, are working very hard to promote online trade in fisheries. And overseas, Alibaba and Amazon. So we are trying to have our Korean fishery products advance to those overseas markets. Now let's talk about In order to vitalize the seafood trade, digital trade in Korea and in the world, what needs to be done? I summarized like this. So we need to create a platform for trading fishery products representative of Korea. So we are making these efforts domestically and internationally. So we need to establish an enabling platform for trading. Second, we need to establish a digital trading system for fishery products. So using the blockchain, we can adopt the smart contracts. That way, we can increase credibility and trust in the fishery trade. And third, we need to introduce smart logistics system. In China, they introduced delivery systems which enable deliveries within 72 hours from the point of ordering. So they can deliver products very fast. Japan also has very fast delivery system, so we need to refer to these cases. Fourth, cross-border e-commerce risk prevention system must be established. As of now, we don't have cross-border e-commerce statistics involving Korea, and this is quite new to Korea. So we need to create this type of statistics and systems. As was mentioned earlier, overseas consumer protection and privacy protection. In these areas, we need to work more. Fifth, we need to introduce a digital trade payment system. Foreign buyers should be able to use a payment system when they deal with Korean businesses. But the Korean payment systems are very easy for Korean people, but they should be easy for foreign buyers as well. So we need to improve this. For example, PayPal and Visa. This type of payment systems must be introduced, which makes it easier for foreign buyers to make transactions. Sixth, we need to foster a digital trade strategy for fishery products. Since fishery products are sold online, it is kind of hard to sell live the fishery products. And also, we need to foster and develop processed fishery products in this regard. Last point, in preparing for this conference, I realized the importance of marketing. Even though you have really good topic and you have a good product, without marketing, without advertisements, you can actually appeal to your target audience. So digital marketing is quite something new to you. So offline marketers are not used to the online marketing. It's gonna be hard for them. So using metaverse, AR, VR, and 3D exhibition technologies must be utilized, but it requires a lot of cost, and also they don't have much expertise and knowledge in these technologies. So in order to enable these marketers to promote and their products online, we need to assist and support them. So with this, I'd like to conclude my presentation. If you have any questions or if you have further inquiries, you can email me at the address shown on the slide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ji Yeon Kim, for your nice presentation. And last but not least, there will be a presentation by Managing Director Fan Shubing of Beijing Seabridge Marketing Company with the topic of China seeks new business opportunities with digital trade activation.
And today my topic is the digital, the China's cross-bound e-commerce opportunity and challenge. Actually, this is a new topic because probably you know China is one of the world's biggest e-commerce market, and for seafood e-commerce, it already been developed since about 2015. So now you can buy a bunch of live frozen and cooked seafood from different platforms, e-commerce platforms in China very easily. But for the cross-border seafood e-commerce, it's a brand new event, activities. So today I'm going to give you some brief introduction about this new sector. This is a very brief introduction of me, about my careers and activities me and my company Seabridge has done in the last 20 years. First, I would like to give you a market analysis about China's cross-border e-commerce during the recent years. By 2020, the total e-commerce expenses for the Chinese consumers out of the total retail expenses is close to 40%, is about 38.7%. But due to the pandemic, it slowed down the cross-border import increase to 15.6%. Actually, the cross-border import has been experiences a very fast developing period between 2014 to 2016 until 2017. But in the recent years, this speed has been slowed down due to various reasons. This data I get from a very famous Chinese research institute called iMedia Research. So among this presentation, you will find many of the slides is from some independent third-party research institute. By 2020, the total cross-border buyers population in China is 158 million, which is a very large number. But this number has not been increased from 2019 to 2020 due to the pandemic. You will find in 2019, the number is 154. The e-commerce divided by total retail, as mentioned, is about 30%. And e-commerce account 76% of the total e-commerce in general. But this is in general for all the different goods. Seafood is just a small part of their e-commerce sales. And even the China is one of the world's biggest e-commerce market, but hello?没有共享吗？sorry， 我是共享了的。Okay, I will try again. Yeah, sorry. Okay.
We apologize for the disruptions.
Yeah.
So let's resume the presentation. Thank you.
Sorry. So I can start from from here. Yeah. You could find actually in 2020, the e-commerce account for about 30% of the total China's retail, but cross-border only account for about 70.6% of the total e-commerce market size. E-commerce, the cross-border e-commerce actually it's brand new things, and so far this only takes about 1.6% of the total China's import and export value. So Even this year, the cross-border e-commerce in China has been developed very fast, but still it's a very small part of the cake among the total big market. Yeah. And here you can see the cross-border e-commerce platforms development. It started from 1919 to 2003, and with the growth period from 2004 to 2012, and with a fast developing period from 2013 to 2017. And now we could say that the China cross-border e-commerce has reached the matured period from 2018, because the growth rate has been greatly slowed down after 2018. And there is a lot of B2B and B2C specialized cross-border e-commerce platforms in China, which is available for the Chinese to choose from. Here is just a list of the Chinese e-commerce platforms. For B2B, you have 16888, that belongs to Alibaba Group, and you have the Xingyun, and you have Haidai. Those are specialized B2B e-commerce platforms. And for the B2C, you have Tmall Global, you have Jingdong Global, you have VIP Global, and you have also the Kaola, which is also belongs to Alibaba. Yeah. So the market is quite concentrated, but there are also many small players in the market. So here I listed several most important B2C e-commerce platforms, which just mentioned the Tmall Global, the Kaola, and the Jingdong Global, and also the social media platform called Little Red Book. Yeah. So Little Red Book is a social media platform called for the cross-border sellers. It attracts most of the female buyers and sellers, which is about close to 80%. It's female users. And on this platform, the best-selling products is not food and seafood. It's the cosmetics and the fragments, all these kind of human beauty products, beauty-related products. Yeah. And the user for the cross-border platforms in China is actually the middle age, from 26 to 30 and from 31 to 40. Altogether takes more than 55% of the total users. And most of these people are from the coastline, from East China, South China, and North China, especially the big cities of the coastlines, Beijing, Guangzhou, Shanghai, and Shenzhen, etc. The experiences of these consumers who choose the cross-border platform, the main reason is they can find more products from more countries from these specialized platforms rather than the regular e-commerce platform. And there is a strong reason why people choose to buy it from the cross-border platform is because of the guarantee, the genuine guarantee, because you can buy from the exporters directly, not through the importers. So people are more feel safe to have the genuine guarantee. And also the strong reason is that those buyers, they choose the brand as the most important reason they buy from, because there are many fake products in the domestic platforms. Yeah. The good news is we can find actually more than 53% of the Chinese consumers, they like to buy Japan and Korea products through the cross-border platforms. And the products category, number one is clothes, bags, shoes, And the number 2 is cosmetics. Food and beverage is number 3. About 40% of the consumers, they choose to buy food and beverage cross-border platforms. Here is one of the leading B2B platform called Xingyun Storehouse. And this company has been established a lot of overseas warehouse in different countries, like in New York, in Sydney, in Europe, in oceanic countries. So the exporters could deliver the products into the overseas storage and shorten the supply chain time. And they also establish a domestic warehouse network, about 14 major cities, including Shanghai, Beijing, etc. So with this professional, international, and domestic warehousing system, this Xingyun Storehouse platform can speed up the speed and the efficiency of the B2B cross-border selling. In order to encourage the general import and cross-border import, China government has implemented many measures in recent years. This is a detailed schedule of the Chinese cross-border policies and progress in the recent years. I won't go to the detail because of time limitation. And our government has recently dropped the import duty for several times from 2014, 2016, 2017, 2018 until 2020. You could see that the biggest dropping is 2018 July. Our government reduced about 1,049 HS called consumer goods import duties. So after these 658 different time of import duty reduction, the general consumer goods and some of the industrial goods import duty has been dramatically reduced in the last 6 to 7 years in order to encourage more importation and more domestic consumption on the imported products. So by 2018, the actual
Ladies and gentlemen, I think that we have some technical glitch because of something, some conditions on the presenter's side. So my apologies to this disruption. And once again, our apologies to the disruptions to the live stream, and Mr. Pan Shuping will resume the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, can you see this? Okay, sorry, I'm very sorry, because I was in the hotel in Shanghai, so probably some connection in the hotel room. Very sorry. Yeah, so I would like to continue with my presentation, and just to follow the previous introduction, you will find actually by 2018 July, the average wild farmed seafood import duty has been reduced from 15.2% to 6.9%. So it's been a dramatic decreasing during the last 5 to 6 years. And the average import duty for different seafood in general is already very low by now. Yeah. Apart from reducing dropping the import duty, our government also tried to reduce the value-added tax for different goods in recent years. So, for instance, for those goods without consumption tax, the Chinese government reduced it from 2014 April, and there's two levels of value-added duty imposed in China before. One is 15%. So for those 50%, it's been dropped to 13%. And another level is 10% has been dropped to 9%. So many of the agricultural products, include seafood, it's belong to the 10%, now it's 9% category, which is already quite low. And for those luxury products, with the consumer tax, consumption tax, it's also reduced from 2019. In China, we have generally three level of consumption tax, 50%, 10%, 5%. And this table summarizes the before and after the reduction, the total value added plus consumption tax. For instance, for the value add tax, about 16%, 15% consumption tax before is 25, 53%, and now is 23.0%. So in average, you can find the total tax of this category has been reduced from 0.7% to 3%. Yeah. And the last section is about the China seafood cross-border policy, e-commerce policies, observation, and some conclusions and advices. First, from 2016 to 2019, Chinese government has approved many new HS code for cross-border direct import, include different seafood and seafood-related products. Just before, the Korean professor has mentioned this, so I'm going to give you some detailed figure. This slide shows that in 2016, 2018, and 2019, the government has separately reduced the cross-bound import duty, allowed it to import through the cross-bound manners into China. In 2016, it's 11 seafood-related products. 2018 is 22 and 2019 it's increased to 35. These are all live, frozen, and the dry products. You can see the different number of the HS code as international standard. So 2016, for instance, in total, Chinese government allowed 11 live, frozen, dried seafood, 3 fish oil products, 1 seal oil products, altogether 15 HS code. In 2018, altogether 46 HS code. And 2019, this is the last new list. We call it cross-bound allowed list. The 2019 is the last version. That is 63 HS code seafood related products. Yeah. So the observation is the total average seafood import duty has been dropped to 6.9% by 2018. And most seafood import value-added tax has been decreased to 9% by 2019. Most of the seafood not need to impose consumption tax, because most of seafood is not belongs to luxury products, and only 63 HS code is allowed approved by the Chinese government by 2019, and that's only account about 15 of the total allowed seafood HS code by the Chinese government. And most imported seafood are not price-sensitive products. Most seafood are origin-driven but not brand-driven products, because seafood is not as a beverage or food or packed food, other products. It's more original products or raw material, premium products. So it's more original-driven but not individual companies brand-driven in China market. And dried seafood like some sea cucumber, prepared seafood, canning products, seaweed, and fish oil products might have a good opportunity through the cross-border e-commerce channel to end consumers in China. Another very important policy the government implemented is the duty-free limitation for cross-border import from 2019 January. So from 2019, our government increased the per person per order free duty value from 2,000 Chinese yuan to 5,000 Chinese yuan. And the total annual limitation for per person per year increased from 20,000 Chinese yuan to 26,000 Chinese yuan, which is a quite large limitation for individual consumers in terms of their compare with their annual income. So this is a very good policy actually. And according to the iMedia research, you will find actually for cross-border buyers in China, averagely they buy only 4 to 6 times a year for 35% of the consumers. And for 32.6 consumers, they only spend 100 to 200 Chinese yuan per year. So compare with the Chinese government tolerance or the limitation for free duty, actually the using of this kind of good policy by the consumers is still very, very low. It's only a few hundred compared with 26,000 yuan per year. I think this is a very big potential opportunity for many of the foreign countries or foreign exporters who want to sell to China, because this is duty-free. This is not any import duty. But the problem is Currently, we lack of attractive seafood products on China's cross-border for the Chinese cross-border buyers. On the leading Chinese cross-border e-commerce platforms, you will not able to find any attractive seafood products for them to buy. I show some of the front page of the leading cross-border platforms here. The first one left is Jingdong Global, the second is Tmall Global, the third is Kaola, and the last one is VIP Global. And you could find on this platform for the food and beverage category is mostly the retail brand products. Some is water, some is milk, and very often you find the cognac and luxury spirit products, and some of the fish oil and food supplementary products, but you never can find the real frozen, live, or fresh or dried seafood. So the demand from the Chinese market and the products available on this platform for the consumers, the cross-border consumers to buy, actually there's a very big gap. Yeah. So the conclusion is here. The regular seafood import and import seafood e-commerce is already fully developed and very competitive in China. There's not many opportunities for the newcomers. Cross-border seafood e-commerce does not show strong competitive advantage against the existing import seafood e-commerce. The tax gap between regular import seafood and cross-border approved seafood is just minimal. Higher packing, transportation costs, as well as short shelf life of live frozen import seafood makes the cross-border seafood e-commerce business not very profitable in China. The annual duty-free limitation of 26,000 yuan per person might be a good opportunity for the cross-border buyers, but very little attractive products consumers could find from these leading cross-border e-commerce platforms in China. The suggestion is first, try to develop the special seafood product for the leading cross-border e-commerce sales. Second, try to buy advertisement on leading cross-border e-commerce platform and social media platforms like Little Red Book and Weibo, etc. And Seabridge Marketing, as the leading seafood marketing agent, we can also provide professional advices, solutions to help your company and your products. Yeah. Here is just a very brief contact information of our company. And you have interest, you can send email to me. And thank you very much. And I'm very sorry for the break during the presentation, just because probably the connection on my room. Thank you. And any questions I can answer afterwards. Thank you.
With this, we are going to finish the thematic presentation session with 4 speakers. If you have any questions regarding presentations, please leave them in the chat box. Up until 5:15, we are going to take a break. So by 5:15, we are going to resume. Now we are going to have an expert-focused discussion session on how to build a digital trade ecosystem to maximize FTA utilization. ISTF President Jung Myung-seng will moderate this session. President Jung, please go ahead. Glad to meet you all. I'm a moderator for this session. Earlier in the thematic presentation session and also in the keynote presentation, we heard a lot of important and precious insights and information. It was very productive session. For myself, I learned a lot about things that I have been so much interested in, and many questions that I had on my part were addressed through those speeches and presentations. Thank you very much. So we have 4 designated discussants for this session. In my welcome remarks, I mentioned there are 2 discussants from Korea, the other 2 from overseas. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. Let me briefly introduce each and every one of these discussants. And then we will talk about how to conduct this session regarding the presentations. In Korea, we have Head of Intelligence Solutions, Jason Kong from Trich. Would you please wave your hand? Second discussant is Mr. Park Moon-gu, Executive Director at KPMG Korea. He is here with us. Third, MCS Senior Expert of Institutional Fisheries Advisor, Francisco Blaha. He is here with us. Thank you. Last but not least, 4th discussant is the founder and managing director of Traceable Solution, Kenneth Katakfono. He's here with us. He's waving at us right now. So we have 4 designated discussants here, but we are not given much time. We are a bit behind schedule. Currently, it's 5:20, so we can have this discussion until 6 Korea time. So in the order of the introduction, these discussants will present their ideas. Please keep your time limit within 5 to 10 minutes. And after these panelists presenting their ideas, if the time allows, we are going to select questions we collected from the floor and on YouTube. So the first speaker in this session will be Jason Kong, Mr. Park Moon-gu, Mr. Francisco Blaha, and Mr. Kenneth Catafono. In this order, they are going to present their ideas. So Mr. Kong, would you please open this session? Good afternoon. I am a head of intelligence and solutions at Trich. My name is Jason Gong. So I'm going to present my ideas in English. I have prepared some presentations. So for the foreign viewers, I'm going to speak English.
buyers. What we're doing is, in between, we are taking care of all the fulfillment, sourcing, quality inspection, quality reports, logistics, and after it arrives in the destination country, we take care of the quality as well. So we're taking everything within the value chain, the long value chain of seafood, what we take responsibility of all the claims and all kinds of quality assurance to fulfill to buyers' needs. What we are trying to develop is eventually an ecosystem leveraging our digital platform. For suppliers, we try to expand their sales channels. For buyers, we try to source at a bit more competitive price, but at the same time, maintaining a good sustainable quality. So we'll be able to distribute them all over the world. So it's all about economies of scale. And this is why our global digital platform is able to source at better cost, source better quality for all kinds of buyers all over the world. What we have been sensing lately is especially a lot of sustainability related requirements from the buyers. For instance, seafood, a lot of buyers are asking for more MSC certificates, and they're asking for suppliers who own the certificates. However, it is not really easy to find or credible partnerships, especially with the supply chain broken down lately. It's super hard to book, reefer containers. The logistics is becoming a huge bottleneck. Even suppliers that buyers have been working for decades, they want alternative suppliers. And without this kind of digital global platform that maintains sustainability and credibility, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, buyers cannot travel to the supplier sites. They cannot do inspections. They cannot go to the supplier sites to do their due diligence. What we have done is we have established this global human network because we understand agriculture and aquaculture, it cannot be 100% transition into digital. It's always going to be offline and online. It doesn't really make sense to go online 100%. So what we have done is our Tridge full-time, all agri and aqua specialist in different kinds of export-heavy industries, we do inspection for them, and we maintain the quality for them, and we source for them. And we use economies of scale, leveraging global network of buyer, global pool of buyers, to bring down the cost and distribute at a bit more effective level. And of course, there could be specific requirements. Sometimes buyers are looking for something very niche, very high-end. What we do is we try to maintain that specialty by having a very specific product specialist for each country. So in Norway, we have like salmon specialist who has been in salmon export industry for 20 years, mackerel for 20 years. We do sense there has been a lot of digitalization efforts lately, especially to implement more and more digitalization. Norwegian mackerel, they work based on e-auctions. So what we are trying to do is bring this platform, digital platform, into their everyday life to facilitate trade better. So buyers, they can actually source from other origins, leveraging our platform. They can look for other suppliers, especially with the whole supply chain breaking down and the huge agri-inflation that we are experiencing lately. We definitely find how our digitalization efforts and platform can actually help out all different kinds of stakeholders in the industry. So, and in addition to that, in order to facilitate this, intelligence is critical. Now, information asymmetry is huge, especially in agri and aqua. So what we have tried to do is we make connections with a lot of government organizations, Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Aquaculture, Ministry of Commerce. We constantly do a lot of data exchange programs, not only these governmental organizations, but associations, wholesale markets, major exporters and importers. We do a lot of data exchange programs to facilitate, optimize the data coverage that we have. So if you come to Tridge, not only you'll be able to access data, and these include global wholesale price data, export data, trade data, seasonality data, you'll also be able to find the offer prices of Tridge that we provide that are directly from our exclusive suppliers. So we do believe, and we very strongly believe, that trading can only be enabled, especially global trading and cross-border trading, along with the optimization of intelligence. So our vision is to lower the bar of information asymmetry, to spread as much market intelligence all across the world, So when buyers and suppliers, when they trade, they can actually absorb the intelligence first and come to the credible partners so they can actually trade with a bit more credibility. So again, what we have been trying to do is make a lot of suppliers and exporters export to more new markets. For instance, in terms of like Mexican avocados, we are distributing to over 30 different countries, different kinds of seafood commodities. We are helping suppliers export to countries that they were never able to penetrate before. We have intelligence, and leveraging this intelligence, we help suppliers penetrate into new markets through this digitalization effort. But at the same time, from a buyer's perspective, ever since COVID-19 pandemic, we help buyers source from more diverse options, a bit more credible supplier networks, so they can less worry about supply chain. So this is what we have been trying to do, and of course, in terms of a bit more, we're working towards a bit more of a vertical integration. We are working with farmers, processing facilities, of course, different types of collectors and exporters. But again, we're trying to create a win-win ecosystem where suppliers, buyers, and Tridge all together can benefit from this digital platform. So thank you, and if there's any question, feel free to jump in.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gong, you said really brilliant things. This is really difficult thing. Bringing fishery products into digital trade ecosystem. In terms of that, we are at a starting point right now. So there are some realistic issues and there are some limitations. And he also presented directions in which we need to move forward. So we need to work together. So thank you very much for making good points.
Next, Mr. Mang Moon-gu, please go ahead. Thank you very much for your introduction. And I would like to ask some questions to speakers in English. And while the speakers prepare answers to my question, then during that time, I would like to give my comments.
Professor Mondragon and Professor Murimi, and also Mr. Panshuving. I have one question each. So I understand that you picked up one example of smart Atlantic, collecting the IoT sources of the sea water to trace or watch what is going on in the production field, kind of seafood production field. So I think similar things are going on at smart factory or smart city or smart farm where IoT and Vision AI is prevailing recently. So my question is whether Amazon or the other e-commerce, Walmart, e-commerce e-commerce platforms are collaborating with those smart Atlantic IoTs to develop their merchandise, seafood merchandise, kind of inserting some, attractive scenario or storytelling upon their seafoods in the market by tracing salmon or crabs in that seawater. So have you heard about such kind of collaboration cases among those platform vendors and e-commerce vendors and IoT data collectors? That's my one question for Professor Mondragon. And Mr. Panshuving, I think I fully agree with your kind of story about, because you have experience in China about that Alibaba and VIP and Jingdong, all are really e-commerce dinosaur doing very well within the China market. But my question is, even though you are a little bit pessimistic about the distribution among the crossover transaction of seafood because of the freshness or cold chain disruption, or too much time is required by passing by the customs gates, something like that. So even so, I think based upon your experience, is there any most kind of probable potential item you think between China and Korea, if there is one or first case of cold chain product is prevailing or making sense, what will be the product based upon your experience? We are observing very many cases in China market that you have live crabs being cooked by the delivery man, or some express delivery man's cooking in the kind of by visiting the customer home or some area. So many kind of a very sophisticated and in-depth and really skinship deliveries being made within China. So I think sooner or later, China and Korea or some seafoods based upon the cold chain, the transaction or trade will be initiated. So if that is the case, what will be the most probable item you think based upon your experience? That's my question for you. And for Professor Murimi, I think I have no question for you, but I do respect your way of thinking. So you provided some complete picture of the traceability and regulation and sustainability and interoperability of each interest parties in the chain. So I think the view is quite complete, and we can use that checklist while we develop the cold chain-based seafood transaction if we want more facilitate those transactions. That's my opinions for the three speakers, and mine in Korean. So before I go into the Korean speaking, I want to make a conclusion with those speakers in overseas. I have experience in governmental project like a smart manufacturing or smart farm agriculture or smart cities, and all have the same common technologies: IoT, vision, edge computing, and algorithm, and optimized patterns or insights feedback looped to reflect that insight into the factory floor or city streets or farm area again. So similarly, I believe that that loop, digital loop, will be prevailing within the seafood transaction, cross-border transaction domain too. So that's my opinion. 그리고 이제 마지막 이제 결론 쪽을 한국말로 바꿔서 하자면,
So let me give my conclusion in the Korean language.
정말 지금은 아직은 디지털이나 스마트라는 이런 기술들이
Digital technology and smart technologies, they are at its early stage, and the huge quantity of technologies like blockchain, QR code, e-payment, IoT vision, edge computing, and self-driving cars and so on, so many things are coming into us. So we need to combine all of them in order to make some kind of circle or flow of technologies, and we should be able to apply and reflect those combined technologies into the fisheries distribution and trade. maybe it would take some time. But looking at the manufacturing sector, I do believe that even in the fisheries sector, those technologies such as cold chain will be rapidly applied to the fisheries sector. And of course, it would be a little expensive because of freshness of the fisheries, it will take some money. However, at least we do have a lot of aspirations and the motivation. There could be many new ideas, such as we can use the Korean celebrities like BTS, but we can display some content where the BTS is cooking crab, and we can show it to the Chinese consumers. So we should create the kind of platform and channel to make the kind of advertisement and promotion. And here, what matters is not technology, but storytelling and strategies. And the storytelling and media content and K-pop content of Korea could be used as a important strategic element so that we can use those elements to appeal Korean fisheries products in the global market. And we can make it possible using digital enablers. So I'm not sure if the professors are ready for answering, but anyway, let me give the microphone to the next person.
Thank you very much for your good comment. Due to the time constraint, I cannot summarize what you said. But basically, he raised questions to the two speakers regarding the application of Internet of Things and what products will be a potentially good products in trade between Korea and China. So after all the discussants say what they have to say, and we will have the opportunity for our speakers to address your questions. So he basically said the product itself is important, but what's more important is a storytelling related to the product. So it's gonna increase the high added value to the product. That's the gist of what he said. Let me turn to the third discussant, the Institutional Fisheries Advisor, Mr. Francisco Blaha. Would you please say a few words? I think there's a little bit of delay, so there's some connection issue. Why don't we change the order of discussions? Mr. Kenneth Catafono will speak first, and after that, Mr. Blaha will have a chance to speak.
we don't hear your voices. So thing is, tech team is actually trying to solve this issue. So kindly wait. Do you guys hear? Do you guys hear my voice? Okay, great. Yeah, yeah, we don't hear you. So we're just trying to solve it right now.
Mr. Francisco Blaha, would you please go ahead? I think we fixed the technical problem.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. So, Yobu Ipua, good evening, good morning, hello everyone there. Interestingly, the first thing I normally say in these situations was perfect for the situation before, when we say we are stuck with technology, when what we really want is the stuff that works. That's come from a book by Douglas Adams. I'll be talking about a bit about the boring part. You all talk about, using digital technologies to sell the fish, to do this, to move in, to do transactions, to do this. My use of digital technologies is actually a step before that, is to actually prove some of the stuff that Marcia said, the boring stuff. What needs to happen before we sell the fish: documentation, transparency, food safety, social responsibility. All those elements need to be proven by states, by organizations like, ministries of fisheries, normally people who earn very little and have very little support. So we have to understand that the potential for technology is always limited to the resources of the people that are going to use it. I always use the example, when I was a fisherman, but many decades ago, I was given a life jacket, and that was a big element of technology back in the 80s. And what I did, the next day that I was given to me, I went to the yacht club where the rich people was, and I sold it, because that life jacket was almost 3 weeks of my wages. Yep. So that is an element of technology we always need to consider. The issues first, when we talk about the use of technology for issues around traceability, is what? What is the information we want to move through? And this, and same as for food safety, it's really easy to talk and say we should do this, we should do that, and information will flow. But what, where, when? These are the building blocks of the type of work that new technologies can help. The first thing, for example, in terms of the legality of fisheries, that is the area of my work at present. The FIO and the United Nations talked about the roles of states, and we have coastal state, flag states, port state, processing states, marketing. Those all have defined responsibilities, and we need to take the information that corresponded on those elements and then pass it along the value. So any form of traceability at this level, or in terms of using catch documentation schemes, or any form of a scheme that guarantees the legality of products or the safety of products, need to work at two levels. One is inside the country, and the other one is inter-countries. Yep. So we may need two different technologies. We may need, or perhaps one, but that needs to be standardized. We need to be talking the same language, and it's not impossible. I work in the Marshall Islands, a place that has, or in Tuvalu, a place that has 11,000 people. It takes 2 flights a week to get there, but I can go to an ATM there and take money out of my account in New Zealand or transfer money to my mother in Argentina. So at that level, we have done it. Of course, in the fishery side, we are still way back for many, many reasons. So the first thing that we like to deal with is what we call sort of where do we find these things? What are we transmitting? And this is what we call key data elements and critical tracking events. Critical tracking events are the points in the business along the value chain where the product is moving in between premises or is transformed, or is determined to be a point where we capture that information. And the key data elements are the key elements that need to be captured in order for that information to move through. With Ken, who's going to be talking a bit later, we wrote not long time ago, actually less than a year ago, a book called Blockchain Application on Seafood Value Chains. And we wrote it for FIO, which is where Marcia works. And we identify in that book all the different elements along the value chain for fisheries where we need to be looking at the information that we transmit. And then we analyze the good and the bad of blockchain to be able to transmit that information and how to capture that. So, as I say, I'm here just to talk a bit about the boring side, which is everything that has to be done before we can talk about e-commerce. Because if we sell a stolen product, if we sell fish that's come from IUU fishing, if we sell fish that is unsafe, we are part of the problem. If somebody uses my house to, sell stolen goods, I'm responsible. I become an accomplice in that thing. So I just want to make sure that we keep in mind those elements before we get too far on great ideas about, traceability and, blockchain and Internet of Things, etc., etc. We need things that work, and that things that work may change in different places. So in these situations, I always come through sort of a little takeaway messages, and with this I finish. First, technology is a tool. It's not a solution in itself. Two, in the development phase of technological solutions that are going to take along the value chain, you need to include the opinions and experience of the people who work on the boats, the people in the processing plants, the people in the export sector. Because otherwise you fell on the mistake of that it's impossible to appropriate measure or regulate what you don't understand. The fisheries world is a culture, it's not just an industry. Furthermore, we should focus always on what is necessary and leave what will be nice for later. First what's necessary, then what is nice. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And finally, as a colleague of mine say, bureaucracy is the art of turning the easy into difficult through the useless. So we need to be aware of not making things too bureaucratic. Thank you.
And Mr. Francisco Blaha made a very important remark because we are talking about digital trade, but however, before that, we need to also think about the advanced processes such as production, in particular about safety and IUU fishing. So the opinions from the field is really important so that we can reflect those opinions in applying the digital technologies. And let me invite the fourth panelist, Mr. Kenneth Catapuno. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good everyone. Good evening. I hope you can hear me okay. So just following on from Francisco's short talk there, I'll be talking about our work with blockchain technology and in the fisheries space. So I've been in fisheries for 10 years now, and I'm also a developer, software developer, blockchain developer, and run a little company here in Fiji. And we work in the agriculture and fisheries sectors. And so I'm speaking to this from a practical perspective of how technology can be used in the seafood supply chain. So some of the considerations when you think of blockchain technology are, you need to have the right tool for the job. Like Francisco mentioned, technology is just, a part of the solution. And blockchain is just one of those technologies that you can use. Another key part of considering blockchain is the size of the value chain. So it doesn't really make sense if you have a very small vertically integrated value chain and you want to use blockchain technology. Blockchain is great when you have multiple actors across multiple jurisdictions, then it kind of makes sense to implement the technology there. You also need to consider the value of the seafood that you're tracking because of the costs associated with blockchain technology. These might be, high value products might be better to track with these types of technologies. In terms of the digital infrastructure you need, you need digitization in your supply chain. In this part of the world, we spend a lot of our time working on digitization first before you can leverage anything like blockchain. Companies still use spreadsheets, still use paper. So we try to figure out what types of technologies will work best on fishing boats, in factories, and across the value chain first, and then we apply the appropriate technologies on top of that. And these need to be guided by regulations and policies. For example, here in Fiji, you can't buy cryptocurrency because you can't send money abroad just to purchase cryptocurrency. It's actually banned by the central bank. So leveraging technologies like blockchain can be difficult, and that's why you kind of need the regulations and policies. And in all the implementations I've seen, there's some degree of centralization, and these are for practical reasons. Speed of transactions, internet connectivity. A lot of solutions out there use some form of centralization before blockchain technology comes in. And there are many challenges to using the technology. First, the state of the technology. Being a fairly new technology, about a decade old, high energy use, interoperability issues, fluctuating prices if you're using cryptocurrencies, and consider how you use that for trade. There's many things that the technology has to mature first before it can be widely adopted in the seafood industry. Knowledge within the industry is also quite limited. And also, just the need for it, the need for blockchain. It sounds sexy, but many times, it's really not necessary to use blockchain technology. Centralized technologies have worked for decades and, can continue to work in many of the solutions. Costs are also quite not very clear on how to implement blockchain solutions and what it costs in the future. We spend a lot of time trying to make it affordable for our clients, and we actually sell blockchain as an option to our clients. If they have the need, if they have the marketing capability to be able to market their products using that, then we would recommend it to them. Otherwise, we focus on digital traceability first. And the lack of digitization and connectivity across the seafood value chain is also quite challenging. You kind of need to fix those problems first before you can anchor all of the data onto the blockchain. In terms of the digital seafood ecosystem, I think what we'd really like to see is fisheries value chain actors able to collect and utilize the data they need. Here in the Pacific, the fishery sector is probably one of the most advanced in terms of the technology and data available. It's just there's so much data, it's how you utilize it that starts to become important. And certainly for seafood trade, going as paperless as possible, reducing friction within within the trade areas would be great. And perhaps in the future, blockchain technology would be the underlying infrastructure that becomes the source of the key data elements that Francisco talked about earlier. You have to consider that so much data is collected in fisheries. Not all of it needs to go into the blockchain. That just increases your costs and decreases the likelihood of that being implemented. So, very quickly, blockchain isn't a silver bullet. It's just a part of the suite of digital tools that are available. It's topical now. It's sexy. A lot of people are talking about it, but there are very real challenges in trying to implement this and implementing it across the entire seafood industry. Is quite challenging. So, we need to strengthen collaborations, and we really need to look at standards and starting to address some of the, the basic digital infrastructure that's needed before you can leverage these much more advanced technologies. With that, thank you very much for inviting me. Look forward to the discussions.
Thank you very much for your comment, Mr. Kenneth. As an expert, you talked about how blockchain will be connected to fisheries and how it will be connected to the supply chain. And you mentioned the challenges in that regard. For digitization, how can we better implement blockchain in the fishery industry and how we can better utilize data? Thank you very much for your good points. We are behind our schedule. As I mentioned earlier, we have questions and comments from the floor and on YouTube and from the panelists. So I would like to give an opportunity to our 4 presenters to speak. So in the order of presentation, would you please say something? If you have nothing to say, you can skip it. So for the first speaker, Professor Adrian Mondragon, would you please say a few words in closing?
Well, just thank you very much for the opportunity to take part of this event. Really interesting to see the points of view from different people, experts in the field. And certainly there was a very enriching session for many of us. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be part of this event. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your remarks. And Professor Renita Murimi, is there any comment?
Yes, I enjoyed listening to the presentations by everybody on the panel as well as the speakers. I referenced a lot of them impromptu in my own presentation, so thank you for that. Lots of very interesting points brought up in the discussions. And I'd like to thank all the organizers, the tech support people for making this event go so smoothly. It has been a challenge with the online in-person whole thing, but I think it was very well done. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your kind words. Ms. Kim? We have many experts here participating. Thank you very much for sharing your valuable thoughts and ideas with us. Regarding digital trade, many countries are realizing the need of digital trade, and they have shared the views that they need to move toward the digital trade. So I'm very happy to learn about that. All countries looking to the same direction. And I really appreciate the advice and ideas from you, and we will better reflect those ideas and thoughts. And also, we need to work together to create a further common ground, and I'll do my best to form better partnership.
And for the last but not least, Mr. Pan Shubing, could you please make any comment?
Hello. Yeah, I'm very enjoying the presentation and the discussion today. And I would like to just answer a question the chairman asked me about how to sell the Korean seafood to China through the cross-border uh, solution. I have a few observation or advices. Because the Chinese domestic e-commerce is already very advanced and very competitive. So I think it's difficult for the Korean companies directly sell through cross-border solution to the Chinese market. But they still have a little opportunity, according to my understanding. First, I would suggest the Korean companies try to work with those B2B platforms, which I mentioned, like Xinyun system, for instance, because they have a lot of warehouse in different countries and also in China. So if you want to sell through cross-border and you want to shorten the supply time, you have to put the products into the frontier. That means before you sell the products, maybe your products are already in the warehouses in big cities close to consumers. So you need to contact them and find a solution and be a supplier or partner with them. And secondly, I would suggest to try to focus on new products, because if you seek Korean seafood on the Chinese e-commerce platforms, you will find many products already very popular, like Korean seaweed and the dried pollock, for instance. But these products is fully developed and the market price is very transparent. So I think it's very little opportunities. And for those new products, and especially the high value items like the snow crab, live snow crab, like the abalone or some other expensive seafood like the flatfish, because there is no product available in the Chinese e-commerce platform. So there is a blank market which you could try. And the last suggestion I would like to say is that you try to work with the leading cross-border e-commerce platforms or channels, because the big e-commerce platform, they also in competing each other for the different channels. For instance, Jingdong have Jingdong Fresh and Jingdong Global. So if you work with Jingdong Global, and you could try to compete with Jingdong Fresh. And same for Taobao, you have Tmall Global and Tmall Fresh. So the domestic products mostly goes to the fresh channel, fresh food products channel, but cross-border, you can try to work with the global channel, because the global channel, they currently don't know how to sell seafood. They mostly sell the expensive alcohol, this kind of water, or this kind of milk pounder, these products. So they have little knowledge about how to sell the seafood. That is opportunity. But there's need a lot of communication, discussion, and preparation before you start to do that. So if you really want to do that, you need to visit these department channels, talk to them, and have the in-depth discussion before you can start. That's just my suggestions. Thank you.
Until the very last moment, you presented very good suggestions about how to expand digital trade between Korea and China. Thank you very much for your insightful comment. Normally, it's kind of rare to see a keynote speaker staying till the end of conference. We have Marcio Castro de Souza, Senior Fishery Industry Officer, is here with us still. I would like to give him an opportunity to briefly give his closing remarks. Let me hand over a mic to him.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And And yeah, indeed, it was a very interesting event. So that's why I decided to stay until the end. And congratulations to all speakers. And just I would like just to emphasize in my closing the importance of this balance between advancing new technologies, but also take into consideration the inclusion of the supply side. We are talking about a very diversified supply side, as Francisco Barra mentioned, in terms of small fishermen, developing countries. So we have to balance in terms of the opportunities and the trade-offs between what we can do to make a digital environment feasible and what are the benefits that is going to be associated. So thank you again for inviting FAO to participate in this event. Congratulations to all panelists and speakers, and thank you Korea Maritime Institute for this opportunity again. Thank you and have a nice day there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marcio Castro, the officer of FAO. Well, we are holding this event online, so many participants are attending from different countries with different time zone. But thank you so much for attending this event and being with us to this very last moment. Thank you all the presenters and the panelists from the bottom of my heart. Because of the COVID-19, we didn't have any option but to have this online meeting. But I hope next year we can meet in person to have a more in-depth discussion. And today, we are at the new start of a new journey to facilitate the seafood digital trade. And I'm looking forward to having another discussion later in the future. And once again, thank you so much for joining us at this symposium. And other questions that we received from the floor will be satisfied, and we are going to upload and share our questions later. Once again, thank you very much. So let us close this symposium and all the discussion sessions. And because of the time constraint, we could not address all the questions. So we'll deliver all the questions to the speakers and panelists and provide answers later in the future. And once again, I really hope that this symposium would lead to a more meaningful discussions to facilitate the seafood digital trade. And I wish every one of you the best success and health. Thank you very much. And for the last, we are going to take a group photo. So all the panelists and speakers, please come up to the stage for a group photo. So this concludes our symposium. Thank you very much.